So now we would like to show you our IoT full stack scenario. In general, there are lots of technologies, so we decide to divide the responsibilities, and I will say something about Arduino, about microcontrollers, and how to exchange data between Arduino and SAP HANA. And I will talk about the protocols, how to exchange this data. And Tomasz, could you introduce to your topics?
Yeah, my name is Tomasz, and I will be talking about data extraction scenarios. But first, I will show you scenarios we are considering. So generally, we had often questions from the customers about some new technologies. And due to this fact, we created some scenarios responding on these questions. For instance, a barcode scanner is a really common query. And basically, at the moment, you can either have a native application or a hybrid application using Cordova. And for instance, you can use a Fiori client to access the Cordova. Or yeah, that's basically from the new technologies, that's it. But from the last year, very popular are becoming some so-called progressive applications. So these applications are fully developed in a web environment, and they have access to native devices, and using service workers, you can provide offline capabilities. So it's still not supported in iOS devices, but on the Android devices, on Windows, on the devices which have Windows, you can already access it, and that's why we created a barcode scanner which works from the web browser. So theoretically, you can deploy it, you can run it from the browser on any device except the iOS, and it will work. We also have some scenarios including analytical capabilities of HANA and SAP UI5 charts, which is it's also very common that customers have scenarios that they want to have some charts. They just want to have small applications which access HANA and display data there. So basically, we started our development in the cloud. We used XS, but as soon as we get our hands on XSA, we decided that this is technology in which we will provide our development on this application server. We are using SAP UI5, Node.js, also XSOData and XSJS is also possible there. From the HANA side, we created DB module in which we have tables and native views. And here I would like to reference presentation which was a few hours ago. One of the colleagues from HP was talking about full stack scenario on XSA, and I really envy that guy because he was working on the newer version of XSA. Our is a bit older, and I had to fill a YAML file manually. When I saw how he is doing this in the new environment, how fast and how pleasant it is, I think we have to upgrade because we have currently a virtual machine and the older version. We simply have to upgrade. Yeah, that's a must. So if it comes to the scanner, we have a component with video, the button after which application is waiting and trying to scan QR code. We have a worker which accesses data from the camera and tries to scan it. When it succeeds, it stops and displays QR code which was scanned. we have a parking scenario. We have access to the data from our parking. We access it through web service. We have a custom-made job on Node.js on XSA. We put this data into HANA, and the application, SAP UI5 application, refreshes OData model periodically. Yeah, as I said, we're using OData. And we are accessing not tables directly, we're accessing views. Because if we would like to show, let's say, busy and free spaces, we don't have to read all the data. We can have HANA do processing for us, because in this way we are limiting the load and we're doing processing in the server which is designed to be fast. Yeah? Of course, if you would use HANA Express, it will act slowly, because from one side we have to have architecture like HANA. From the other side we have to have servers. We have to have memory. We have to have processing power. If it comes to the temperature scenario, I think it's the most interesting scenario. Mateusz will talk about Arduino. Yes, we are using Arduino in this scenario, and we're collecting data from the device. We have their middleware from which we are getting the data, and we are displaying data on the screen. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. As Tomasz said, we are using Arduino. Arduino is a small microcontroller which helps us to get data. We are using sensor DHT11, which takes the temperature and humidity. In general, Arduino is connected with this sensor, and Arduino allows us to put the code in C or C++ language. There is an IDE which allows us to deploy this code. Arduino is connected with module ESP8266, and this module allows us to connect with Wi-Fi, and then this data could be transmitted outside, for example, somewhere in internet. In our scenario, we are using generally we consume a RESTful web service from middleware. In our scenario, a PHP server plays a role of this middleware, and when Arduino puts this data to middleware, then middleware create a public XML file which is consumed by SAP HANA, but I will talk about it a little bit later. Now I will start talking about Arduino. What is it? Why we are decide to using this microcontroller? So the answer is really simple. In general, this stuff, which one second, up here. In general, this stuff which I'm holding in my hand cost lower than 20 euro. So this stuff allows us to deploy code, to connect with internet, to take the data about humidity and temperature. So from our perspective, there is a high probability that it will be used commercially. I wouldn't like to bore you about Arduino and so on, so I will only shortly describe you what's going on in the source code. Generally, we are using a simple library which allows us to take the data, and we are only use a simple method to get it. And in this line, we see that how looks the consumption of RESTful web service. In general, it's really simple. And how it looks from the middleware side. So general, middleware creates this public XML, and then from HANA side, there is a simple function which has a defined destination, and it gets this XML, and there is a simple parser which takes the required values. In general, there is a defined job which calls this function for particular minutes or so on, and it looks, and It's close to real-time processing. General, I showed you how it looks from the our scenario, but there are lots of different another scenarios which depends of the business requirements. I showed you generally prepared the 3 simple scenarios. The first is really easy, and this is the most popular scenario. General, here we are using our middleware and defined message management center, which ACP provide for us. And here we should only define several simple things like message or device, and we have to put it into the header of the post request and some parameters like our encrypted password or generated token. But it's not so interesting. In general, this protocol is the most interesting from our perspective. MQTT is defined for Internet of Things. If you would like to make some solution which have lots of different devices, then we should take this protocol because of it is optimized. So if there's any device which use this protocol, then it don't take lots of energy. So this is first important thing. Then the another one, this protocol is 60 times faster than HTTP protocol. From Arduino perspective, it looks really simple. Generally, there is one library which allows us to make a connection with the broker and publish the data. And from HCP side, it looks just like that. So we have the possibilities to make a subscribe. General Messenger in Facebook is a really good example to understand how it works. Generally, we have 2 cases. For example, there are 2 persons. For example, first one is offline and the second one is online. And the second one sends the data to the first one, and it doesn't matter if this first one is offline. He or she could read this message whenever she wants or he wants. But if these two people are online, then they can chatting, so there are transmission real time. The another way how to transmit the data, this is WebSocket. So it looks like we can imagine one person who has open communicator window, and he's waiting from the another person to get some message. From Arduino perspective, it looks like similar. Generally, we have one library which allows us to handshake and send the data. And from XSA and HCP perspective, it looks like simple. Generally, there are no JS, so we can make the web server. Some advantages and drawbacks of this solution. General, I read this WebSockets is 3 or 5 times faster than HTTP, but it allows us to transmit data in real time. So if someone would like to create a solution which requires real-time transmission, so this is a good solution. But if your scenario is biggest and you have lots of different devices, so MQTT is better. General, these things which do you see on the slides, this is what I said for 1 minute. So if you would like to build a simple solution and you don't need a real-time transmission, then HTTP is the best way what you can do. But you have to know that it is not so fast and so on. But if your scenario is so complicated and there are lots of devices, lots of clients, then MQTT is the best for that way. And WebSocket, as I said, if you need something, if you would to show real-time data and you need a duplicity transmission, then WebSockets will be great in that case. Tomek, could you say something about data extraction?
Yeah, so basically we considered two types of data extraction scenarios. One is polling and the second are WebSockets, and we can compare them by example. Let's say we are doing some important work and somebody comes every 5 minutes and asks us, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? So that's like polling, yeah? But if this person comes to us and says, I finished, and we can instantly do something with such data, yeah? So job processing, it's like the person who sits and somebody is instantly checking on the output, yeah? So it takes time, it generates load. It's maybe not the most efficient way. On the SAP UI5 client application side, one would have to, for instance, refresh a data model periodically, and then charts and tiles would be refreshed as well, connected to that model. In case of the WebSockets, in general view, the device registers as a client, does a handshake, and sends some message to the server, which in turn can broadcast this information to any clients. We can also use hybrid solutions. Like in this, like with Arduino, we cannot use WSS, so we could do following. We could, on the HANA side, on the Node.js side, we would have a job which would simply check if we have some new data from the device, and if so, on the Node.js, using WS module, we would create a WebSocket, send the message to WebSocket server, which in turn would do the broadcasting to the client. So it's better if it comes to the data load and processing speed, but it requires connection maintenance. In the WebSocket server, we have to check if there are some dead connections, and also application, SAP UI5 application must register to events like on message, on error, on close, on connection. So if we would go a bit more into detail in jobs, in XSA there is a job solution. As our colleague previously said, XSA is based on Cloud Foundry, and XSA job is a service on XSA. We are currently using Node.js custom job. Oh, I reminded, I'm sorry for the moment, because colleague Mateusz was also talking about XSJS and the destination. So generally there are no more destination on XSA, so we have to create, we are using exit function in which we are providing destinations data. That's the way XSJS can work with destinations, but there is no physical file for destinations. Yeah. Okay, so we are using Node.js, so the yellow arrow shows that we have to ask device for the data. It sends us the data. We're asking device again and again, and similar processes between client and server. So from the device side perspective, Node.js server triggers XSJS file, which is a server-side JavaScript, which calls web service from our middleware. We get the data, and we put it into our HANA database table. From the client perspective, basically, SAP UI5 doesn't need to know about HANA or whatever. It just calls XSOData web service and gets data from HANA views. Also, working with SAP UI5 on XSA is only different in such manner that on XSA, SAP UI5 is a module, and there is no neo app JSON, there is a XS app JSON, and there are some small differences, but they are not big. If it comes to the WebSockets, as I said previously, in Node.js there is a module for WebSockets. There is also a module we can use for server creation express. So we can create web server socket, we can create WebSocket, and we can extract data from device in such a case. On the side of SAP UI5, there is a component in core library which we can use to establish WebSocket client. What we didn't create full WebSocket scenario. We were using a hybrid. So we have a device which is regularly asked for the new data, and server in a WebSocket sends a message to the WebSocket server, which is later on broadcast to SAP UI5 client, which is registered to on message. And on message, the information is put in the tile in the temperature field. So basically, we believe that our work is not nearly done. We still want to do a lot. We want to rework caching, provide preload file. Basically, what I heard today is that if we will wait for the newer version of the SAP UI5, most of our problems will fix themselves. So, yeah, that's also a solution for us. More time for beer drinking. Then we have a full WebSocket scenario. We are really interested in this scenario, and we will try to accomplish that. If it comes to the graphical user interface, we will also want to improve it to make it more sexy. And at the end, we also want to create additional scenarios, like one including predictive analysis library on HANA side, so artificial intelligence and forecasting.
This is a chance for example, for Arduino, which could be connected with several of sensors. And for example, in that case, we can use skin resistance sensor, and we can buy, for example, a lie detector in SAP HANA. In general, there is lots of different scenarios which could be implemented. Generally, only our brain only our brain has limits. So
yeah. So thank you very much for the attention. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? No? I have one.
Okay.
You mentioned the MQTT broker. Where does this run? Is it a special server? Is it included in HANA? I don't know.
At this moment, we check this broker. This an external server, which could be in the middle of Arduino and SAP HANA, for example. In general, we saw that SAP XSA has a library to MQTT module, but what we didn't check.
It is called MQTT.
Okay.
But we didn't check if there is something like server, but we think that there is a client, yes, but
okay.
we need
didn't
a
check
broker.
it, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we will.
You will report next UI5con what you achieved, yeah?
Exactly. With our extended scenario.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Do you have any authorization from Arduino
this is one thing which I forgot to say. General Arduino does not support encrypted connection. Generally, there is one alternative using a different module to send this data, but currently we are using no encrypted connection between Arduino and our middleware. So we are consume this RESTful web service, and this data are published in our.
So application is secured from HANA side and XSA side, but from Arduino we just get everything which we get. So it's basically Arduino Arduino data are not secured in any way.
Is it running in a secure network, in private network?
It's working in our company network.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
There's someone.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question. You said that you're using HANA. Can you tell us anything about your experience with the data storage? I guess you get a lot of data from these sensors. What's your data model like, and which experiences do you have with the performance, for example?
Well, as I previously said, we are using HANA Express. So here I can only say it's not magnificent. But for my current customer, I'm also doing some HANA developments. So, well, customer was a bit shocked that it's not just that you will create some sort of model, do any joins, and it will be working fast. It does not. You have to optimize it. You have to create indexes. You have to think about joins. Maybe in some cases you use left outer joins, which speeds up the thing. But also, if you use left outer joins, there is possibility that you will get out of memory. Customers also tend to forget about this fact that it's not just that we will do here one join with one big table with another big table, and we have one configuration table where they decide that there will be 1,000 entries which will multiply all together, and suddenly, yeah. Does it answer your question?
Okay. Anything else? I can't see you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.